staff or more money for his staff. But here's Deion Sanders, I think right out in his backyard, discussing about a minute or so the NIL.
NCAA, you got a little problem. Let me explain. See, with the NILs, which really ain't NIL because ain't no name, image, and likeness, it's just pay-per-view right now. That's what they doing to the big boys. Little boys, we can't compete with that. But anyway, you got a problem. See, when you start paying athletes like they're professionals, you get athletes acting like they're professionals. And you don't have staffs large enough and equipped enough to handle a young man with money. Let me go deeper. Handle a young man that's making more money than some of the coaches on staff. You got a real problem. So I suggest to you to allow college teams to hire more qualified men, that could handle these young men that's getting this money.
All right.
He's not wrong, but, you're also talking about right now there's, 10 or 15 guys that are going to do that. Assistant coaches at the big boys. Is he talking about at his level to hire that? Because he also said they can't compete with the big boys.
There aren't many NIL deals. And Craig has mentioned this. We see whatever Jordan Addison's going to get or what Quinn Ewers got or the kid from Tennessee or whatever. But the percentages of getting NIL money that's really big money is very small. We're focused on those because they're our star players. The NFL has almost, not everybody, but pretty much everybody on the roster is making more money than perhaps other than the coordinators and the head coach.
Well, and even then, the head coach still has a guy. Look, Tom Brady makes more than Todd Bowles does. So there's still that, but it's a different point. Tom Brady's 45 years old. He's a different point in his life. What Deion is, the point I do agree with.
Josh Allen's making more than Bills coach.
Yeah. The point I do agree with, though, is that you're talking about an 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid who might be making more than a coach. And that's going to be hard for those coaches to handle those particular guys. But he's not wrong. I just think that the problem is not that big yet. But it's just something that they need to get out in front of. And they're talking about having no limits on coaching staffs. So that will probably change here shortly as well.
Yeah, I like when Deion reflects or discusses his opinions on topics like this, and I think it's good to have a black head coach who's coming from his perspective as well. And what I mean by that is that you hear a lot of times, and I know it's social media mostly, but, you don't want to play the players, or it's somehow, some personal vendetta, or it's old rich white men just want to be stingy with me, you know what I'm saying? And so it's good to have somebody that, has been a player, has been a coach, has been a pro, he's been everything. He's been a high school coach, he's been a camp director. Deion's seen every aspect from his own personal experience to all of the young men and women that he's been around at this point. So I think being at a lower level, and he's bound to have all those caps taken off because he's going to be at Florida State or wherever big brand he lands here in the next couple of years. I think we all expect that to happen, but I do think he's got more of an open clear view of kind of both sides of the fence than most people do. And so, and I think, and being a black man as well, I think that does play into that as well, because a lot of the people that we're talking about are young black men. And there are definitely, I'm sure, some people out there who have a problem with that specifically. Now, thankfully, they're the minority, but he's got every base covered, basically, is what I'm saying. So he's got as knowledgeable of an opinion on this as anybody could possibly have, in my mind. And so I'm glad to hear him, with that experience, to be able to reflect from his point of view on what he thinks or sees as maybe some of these problems. And, I think it's pretty unanimous now across the board that every coach is like, yeah, we know it's part of the deal, but here's the tweaks that we would like. And he's suggesting a tweak here. Others have suggested other tweaks. And the whole time that we've been talking about NIL, it's not about anti-NIL. It's about just tweaks. And so everybody's in search of them. He's got a suggestion. Now, obviously, is that a little bit of a selfish suggestion? Yes, of course. He's got to look out for himself. But as we were talking about with our guest earlier, it's also, self-interest is what everybody's involved in. So I don't know what the exact rules are for coaching staff sizes as far as Jackson State goes. I don't know if it's any different than it may be other places or other levels, but I don't, if you can swing it, if you can afford it, he did put a lot of emphasis on the word qualified. He's not asking to just bring in street agents and have them around the players. He's asking for qualified coaches, and I think that expands the coaching trees, it expands the opportunities, and it probably would, if you get the right qualified people with the right backgrounds, help these young men navigate some of the issues that they're going to be facing that we throw out there as what we think could be potential problems, and what we have no idea because we don't have the experience or we're not in that foxhole with them, what the other issues are that come with NIL. Because I guarantee, I'm sure that as soon as a guy pops a big NIL deal, just like when a guy blows up as a musician or as an actor or whatever, especially young, what happens? All of a sudden, that third uncle that you'd seen at 2 family reunions comes calling, and people want their hands out, and that's a story that can go wrong quickly. So there is some guidance that I think is needed when you're talking about handling money. Now, is it the majority of players? No, but I'm just for anything that helps players, man. That's all I want. If more coaches help players, great. That's all I want to see is what is ever best for the player, and that's not just simply earning money and that's it. I mean, earning money, doing as best as you can with your education side of things, especially if you're not somebody that's going to be making a whole lot of this type of money beyond your college years of playing football. You don't have those pro aspirations, or it's not realistic you're going to go pro. There is some people that could be around that could definitely help with a lot of these other issues that we're not even thinking of right now. So anyways, I think it's a unique perspective that is worth listening to, and whether it's selfish or not, I think anything that benefits the athletes is what we need to do.
It's not like Deion Sanders when he was at Prime Prep, a high school that he tried to open up and it did not go well. Wasn't trying to perhaps recruit and do some things. So it's not – he's been a coach at the high school level. He's been a coach at the college level, HBCU. He's been a star player at Florida State. And, of course, we know his Hall of Fame career in the NFL as well.
Now,
one of the text messages –
the problem is at some point there's only so much money.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to have expanded coaching staffs and now you're paying the players more, and you might be paying them even more – in the few years where you're paying for all of them all of a sudden, like there is a point where only so many schools are going to be able to just keep writing check after check after check, adding 5 new assistant coaches or whatever. So, maybe that creates some more separation ultimately. I don't know, but that's probably the last thing to have to worry about.
With the NCAA, or whatever they're going to be called, do you think anyone would ever agree with Texas or Florida, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Alabama, ever agree to any kind of revenue sharing?
I mean, one day they probably have to. Look, one of the best ideas Joe Mowgli had was that the Power Five should collectively negotiate their TV deals together, not separately. I mean that
you're talking about no matter what.
But the SEC and Big Ten won't want to do that.
No, they don't want to do that. But because the SEC and Big Ten don't see that what's good for more of college football is better for them too.
Which is to his point about self-interest is getting in the way of everything.
But going back to Deion, I think especially at his level, at the FCS level, at the HBCU level, to get quality assistant coaches in there, Deion is lucky that because he's Deion Sanders, he can call up some other ex-NFL guys who want to be coaches that have money in the bank that want to work with Deion like he does. Deion's not working at Jackson State to make money. I mean, he'll make money. He can make money doing almost anything else. He's made millions of dollars over the year. This is what he wants to do now. But so he has to call those guys up. But Deion's the coach at Jackson State. Eddie George is the coach at that school in Nashville. I'm blanking on in Tennessee. But so you have Deion, Eddie George, and
Tennessee State.
Tennessee State. He's at Tennessee State, but. Is the coach at Grambling going to have that much money, or is a coach here? No, I mean, that's not always going to be the case, that these ex-NFL guys who made bags and bags of money want to do this because it's what they want to do right now. So you got to open it up to make sure that the staffs can hire people because, how many of those guys are really out there that have, just buddies that have money that can come and do that?
His staff, when he was hired, included Dennis Thurman, former Cowboys defensive back, also, Alan Ricard, who was a former NFL player. So he's had some guys that were in the league that perhaps Kevin Mathis, former NFL player. So he's had some guys that were in the league that had a chance to probably not have to go into coaching to make money, at least not initially, but to help Deion with what he was trying to do at Jackson State. All right, when we come back, and there's a text on Deion that I want to get to as well because we haven't read a spot on. Deion, excellent take by Sanders. What's disturbing is that some act like what he said was a revelation, while many of us have been warning about this from the very beginning.
Yeah, like I said, everybody's been saying tweaks. They get shouted down by you hate NIL. You don't want players getting money. It's like they're just intentionally being ignorant because it doesn't suit the narrative when everybody's just saying, we just need tweaks. And if, Deion's got his opinion on what those should be, and it's part of the, expanding coaching staff. Saban's got his opinions on what those should be, and I'm sure every coach in America has their opinions on what they should be as well. Those are all great. But somebody get Saban in a room with Deion. I know they've interacted before. They've done TV stuff together and all that. Get those two in a room. Get the commissioners in a room. Get whatever other head coaches in a room. And be proactive, like our man said earlier, and get to work on it. But everybody talking on Twitter and sending videos, and this is not a diss to Deion. He's doing what he can do at the moment. But get those guys in a room and get to work on what you can actually do and what is feasible, and get ahead of it. And don't wait for 5 more years until the government's like, oh yeah, we still haven't done anything about that, and you just let it all go, and then you look up in 5 years and you're in the even worse position than you were already.
Joe Moglia said that the NIL are 3 years ahead of the NCAA or whoever, and if you wait another year, you'll be 8 years behind.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right.
So all the talking on Twitter is great, but ultimately the adults got to get in the room. And I know it's not just that. They're having meetings and everything, but, yeah, you got to get ahead of it as best as you can, even if you already are behind it.